everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And we're really excited today. We are here to talk about South by Southwest Film Festival. And it's film music. It's got everything down there in Texas. And it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner. And our friend Dillon is here with Slasher Reviews. And Dillon, thank you so much for coming on. This is your first time.
This is my first time. I'm
Ah,
thrilled to be here. I'm excited to talk South by Southwest and just have a good time.
yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So since this is your first time, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about how you developed your love of film.
Yeah. So for new listeners out there, or maybe people I might have brought into here, hi. Just in case you don't know, my name's Dillon. I run the outlet Slasher Reviews. I'm a big fan in all things spooky, scary, international flares, and also just as a fellow gay man, I like also anything that's very, very hella gay. So I tend to focus on that. I got into films very early on. I mean, we all grew up watching movies to some degree, but I watched my first horror film in the seventh grade. It was the first Friday 13th, and everything I was
Wow.
told about horror movies, like this is the final girl, this is that, everything went out the window, and I just became obsessed. And ever since then, I've just been riding on that coattails. And I feel very blessed. I started talking about movies on the internet in 2010, back when it wasn't very fun to talk about movies on the internet. And I've just been very, very thrilled of the life that it's kind of given me.
Yeah.
I'm on every social media platform there is, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, which is where most people tend to know me from, Instagram, Letterboxd. You can find me, literally, it's Slasher Reviews. That's it. If you want to find me on a social media platform, it's Slasher Reviews. I kind of honor my roots with that name. My first horror film was a slasher film, and I love slasher movies. So, which we might talk a little bit about while in this South
So
by
did
Southwest wrap
did,
up.
did your family they watch a lot of slashers, or were you kind of a rebel?
Yeah. So I come from a house divided.
Okay.
So my mother is very no horror. My dad is very horror. But I will admit I kind of gravitated towards my mother growing up as a kid. I kind of was like the textbook example of what a pastor's kid wants their kid to be.
Uh-huh.
I didn't watch horror films. I didn't do any of that stuff. I grew up in the Bible Belt of like the deep south of North Carolina, where we said HE double hockey stick because if we said the real word, we were
Yeah.
going to go there. So I had a lot of re-educating I had to do. But my father loved them, and he said no. You go to church on Sundays, and then they would talk about horror movies are bad, and then but my father would watch them, and he'd just be like, "Don't listen to them," like don't listen to them,
Yeah.
type of like whenever the pastor would say something that like was like, no, don't listen to that.
Mhm.
So and then eventually it was one of those things, it was just like when I felt ready, I was ready, it
Yeah.
wasn't like I didn't have to force myself. And then when I was, it was like, because I can get oddly obsessed over things and get obsessed over things very quickly.
Yeah.
And once I did, I've been coasting on it ever since. And I've made it my entire personality.
I
So
love
yeah.
that. I think that's great. I mean, I can kind of relate, not as much the horror aspect, but my parents were like not into, still to this day are just not movie people like at all. And so I had to kind of like forge my own path. and and I have been trying ever since I became a Rotten Tomatoes critic in 2019. I've tried to expand my palette and watch more horror movies, more scary movies. I think I've been pretty good. I watched the original Halloween, I watched Scream, I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, I watched The Thing. So I'm getting there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll try. I watched I did last year. I did pretty good. I watched Severance. I watched okay, now my not Severance. Why did I say that? I watched the Demi Moore one. What is wrong with me?
Oh, The Substance.
Substance, not Severance.
Yes,
Not what
yes.
television is on my mind. Yeah, the Substance. I watched the Substance.
Oh man,
That
talk
was
about a 0
pretty,
to 100.
yeah. But it's interesting because that this is my fourth year attending the festival, and I last year I got super sick.
Mm.
So I'm beginning to think maybe I don't have the best of luck when it comes to South by Southwest, but I got really bad allergies. I think it was the cedar, and it was such a bummer because not only did I was made it harder for me to enjoy the films because I just didn't feel good, but then I had scheduled a whole second week in there with my best friend from college who lives in San Antonio. And it was just such a
Mm.
bummer because we had all these plans and I felt like death warmed over. So couldn't do very much. But the best laid plans, like what they say.
Yeah.
I was really debating like what do I do this year? Because I like to since I have a place to stay, I've had good experiences there. I applied and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna get these horrible allergies again. But I applied and then I got in and then I started looking for tickets and they were crazy expensive, the plane flights. I'm like, I can't afford $800 right now, not even close. And so I got the great idea. It seemed like it was a brilliant stroke that I would drive to from Salt Lake City to Austin, which is 20 hours basically.
Yeah. We don't, oh, that's so brutal.
Yeah.
So when I'm not doing film stuff, not to interclone, I work in aviation, so I
Oh,
travel a
okay.
lot. So I
Yeah.
know the distance between that. Um, I get
Yeah.
it. Let me road trip. We all love the road trip idea until
Yeah.
we're in the midst of a road trip.
Especially by yourself. Like
Yeah.
if I had had another person to switch off, it would have been a lot more doable. Um, but anyway, it seemed like a good idea on paper, but it really wasn't. And then I was only at the festival for 3 days because I got worried since I'm driving my dad's car and there was this big snowstorm expected on Saturday in Salt Lake. And so I ended up leaving on Thursday. So I didn't get to see that many in person at the festival. I only saw 5 movies while I was there in Texas. And then I've seen a couple others. Plus, I saw some at Sundance. But yeah, I figure you try things. I don't think I'd ever do it again, but oh well.
I get that. I've been there. I've been
Yeah.
there.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
But how did you feel about the festival as a whole? You saw what, 25 movies?
I saw 25 movies on the dot. I like a nice
Nice.
round number. And I actively strive for that. And I will admit, I actually saw less than I thought I was going to see. This is my third time doing South by Southwest. I've been going since 2019. And I actively said, you know what? South by Southwest is such a massive festival because it's not just about film. In fact, if you were to talk to the locals of Texas, they would probably rank the film component on the weakest of the three, which is wild to me because I go there for the film component. I don't even go there for the tech or music, which has a whole, massive attendees in that in of itself, and the pop-ups and all that stuff. I mean, you can go to South by without even buying a badge, I personally don't recommend it, but you could do it. You could do it.
Yeah.
My first year I went to South by, I didn't have a badge. I was like, I was just a struggling little critic trying to make it out there. So and I worked in aviation, so I could get myself there. And I just started emailing every PR firm, like, can I get in? Can I get a filmmaker ticket? And I just reviewed whatever I could get. And now I feel blessed that I'm able to attend as press. And I was there for the entire fest this year. So I saw 25 films. And I had a great time. I would say, because I tend to focus on a lot of genre films, I think when it comes to the headliners, some would probably argue and say that this year is weaker than last year when it came to the headliners. But I actually felt like I might be the one to be like, hold me back, let me defend South by, and say that I actually think I like this year's films more, because this year just had more midnighters. It had more genre films that were more tailor-made towards what I tend to strive for. So I actually think I like this year's festival more than last year, but I actually think I might be in the minority with that opinion.
Well, the premieres were a lot more interesting to me last year than this year. Like, even though I ended up being very disappointed by it, like the Fall Guy was very appealing to me. The Monkey Man, that was appealing to me. Whereas like none of those big premiere projects really were interesting to me this year. I was not interested in Another Simple Favor. I was not interested in what was some of the other ones?
The Accountant 2.
Oh yeah, The Accountant 2. Not interested in that. Those are two sequels. I was like, why are they making these? I have no idea.
I was actually interested in Another Simple Favor, but I think that's just because I really do like a lot of trashy stuff. And
like I liked the original just fine, but not enough that, like, I don't know, it just feels like one of those forgotten films.
Oh man, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the gay in me. But I find that movie just so like endlessly rewatchable, and this is like a straight white girl's airport novel type of film. And I just like find it so funny. So I didn't see the sequel for the simple fact that I'm there. Sometimes I have to pick the assignments. You know how it is. Sometimes you got to pick the assignments over what you want to watch. Every now and then I'll break that rule because I am my own boss. But I actively had to pivot because I'm like, well, if I have to see The Astronaut, because The Astronaut is more in my wheelhouse. And when you're scheduling things and what you think you can see, I'm like, well, then I wouldn't be able to make it.
Yeah.
So therefore I ended up choosing The Astronaut, which, spoiler alert, I wasn't a fan of. So, but so I ended up, my first film was The Threesome, which I loved, but because I got there early, so I saw the 3:00 film and then waited for The Astronaut as my real opening film.
Did they let you, or did you have to go back and stand in line again?
So I had an express for The Astronaut.
Oh, that's nice.
I actually did fairly well with the expresses on the first.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Days. On the first few days, I did fairly well. It's as the festival went along, I was like, okay, my luck with Express just went away. But I got Express for all the main films that I wanted to see, or I got a filmmaker's ticket for it. The smaller films, anything that was playing at the Draft House, I had to wait in line for.
Yeah.
If it was at the Draft House, I had to wait in line for. Or Violet Crown, I had to wait in line for.
I got express passes for the Zach, which I was happy about, and I got one for the Paramount. Yeah, but the rest were waiting.
Yeah, surprisingly, it's like I really do love it though when I ask for like a filmmaker's ticket or a press ticket, or I get express and they actually give it to me. Like I got one for Friendship, which I love 10 Robinsons, but sometimes when you're when your brand is more, it's very niche. Sometimes it's hard to get invited to things, to certain films. So I honestly love A24 because I was so excited to see Friendship because I love Tim Robertson's. I think his comedy is fantastic, but I was like, oh, they're not gonna invite me because like I'm gonna have to wait in the long line to see this because I just because I'm slasher reviews. They're like, they're not gonna give that to a horror creator, you know?
Right,
But
right.
I love that I was able to
Did
get
you end
into
up
that.
you end up seeing it?
I did end up seeing it.
You liked it?
It's one of my personal favorites.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I liked Tim Robertson. I liked his Netflix show. I think he's just
What was his show?
Oh my God.
I don't know if I know him.
I think you should leave. It's one of those long titles. It's cringe comedy where, you know, a man can't get social cues and he finds himself in situations that you're just like getting nervous over, and, you know, meme worthy stuff, you know.
Cool.
You've probably seen gifs from it without realizing that's where it comes from.
Well, let's talk about my favorite that I saw there is Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. So this is like an ideal film to see at a festival. It might even been worth my whole drive because like it's just such a cool experience to like hear them talk about this movie, because yeah, it's a hard movie to describe, and I had never heard of this comedy troupe thing. This, I guess they're a thing. They do things. I never heard of them before, but the way they were able to mix improv to mix unscripted and scripted together so seamlessly was really impressive. And you know, you just watching, and they had certain people blurred out, so they're obviously not scripted, those people, and then hearing them talk about it and talk about how they got away with doing some of the things they did, you're just watching it like, what?
I know. Like I too saw Nirvana, and it was also one of my favorites. It was probably I won't say it was my favorite theater experience. It was probably my second favorite theater experience at the festival. Yeah. But because of the fact that I could not decipher what was real and what was fake the entire time watching it, because of just the absolutely insanity of that movie. I was like, it is, you're right. It's the type of movie you go to a festival for, because you don't necessarily know when this movie's ever going to come out. And even if it can even come out, because of like the copyright and the legalities of what they're going to have to go through to get that out and through a distribution, which is just insane.
Yeah.
You know, I love festivals, and I do tend to gravitate towards a lot of smaller films at festivals for that very notion. You know, because a lot of times these festivals, you know, these movies are trying to get bought. So, you know, they're fighting for their lives, you know, being put on trial, and watching that in a crowd.
Oh, it was so fun. And then to have the Q&A. Do you think that the name will be a barrier? People not going to want, I mean, I just feel like what people are going to think it's like a rock concert or something. It's confusing.
Yes, I do. I will admit, I wouldn't have chosen to see it had it not been so highly recommended after its first showing. And I'm like, and it was one of those things. It's like, okay, I got to break. I literally gave up seeing a horror movie, something, The Descendants, something that would have easily gotten me clicks and reviews and something. I actively, because I'm like, look, I know sometimes I have to think about my own best interest as just a lover of movies. And I'm like, I don't know when this is coming out. Like, I have a feeling it can come out in Canada because they stole Canada, which is just insane. The fact that they did it. You make a movie like Blackberry, and they're so happy. Canada's so happy that you make a movie like Blackberry, and they get all this money. Like, we'll fund whatever you want. You steal all this money, and you go and do this? The whole time watching it, I'm just like in shock. It's hilarious. True. It's creative. I'm just like, I cannot believe it exists, and I'm so happy it exists, but I don't know when the public's gonna be able to see it. So I'm like, I have to go see this movie. I have to see this movie. No other movie matters but seeing this movie, and I'm so glad I did. I saw it with the guy who was seeing it for the third time. He saw it at every single showing because he knew that, like, he didn't know when he was going to see it again.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I don't want to spoil it for the audience listening if you get a chance to see it, but there were times where my mouth was gaping. I just couldn't believe it. was crazy. Oh, and a nice friendship story too. Like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
just cringe. It's a it's a nice friendship story. So yeah, it was really fun. I agree. Well, let's talk about Death of a Unicorn. So this is the A24 film. It's coming out soon, I think, in theaters. And so I just saw it actually yesterday at a screening, and I really enjoyed it. I think the thing that I liked about it was that I just felt like it was so unpredictable. I really did not know what was going to be happening and what these I like there was these creatures were bloodthirsty and scary at times, but then there were times when you were supposed to feel so like sentimental and like, oh, they're baby and kind of a thing, and maybe they're like there's this connection between Jenna Ortega and the unicorn, all that stuff. And I don't know, I just felt like I have no idea where this is going. And so that was fun for me. I liked the unpredictability of it. But what did you think of it?
Let's debate, because I actually was not a fan of Death of a
Yes.
Unicorn, which
Yes.
honestly shocked me. It was one of my most anticipated films of the festival, and I felt very blessed that I was able to see the movie. And I definitely think it's a film to see in the theater with a crowd and get those genuine reactions to it. And weirdly enough, I can say, as somebody who has seen pretty much everything under the sun, is not that has no I have no triggers. I'll watch whatever. My in college, my minor was in French cinema, so I've been very desensitized. So I can say, weirdly
Yeah.
enough, I've not seen many movies about unicorns or killer unicorns, but yet oddly enough, it felt like it actually was stuff I had already seen before. I actually felt the opposite. I felt like I knew exactly where it was going. I felt the direction and the characters were extremely safe. I thought the kills and I thought the violence and I thought that paper, I can imagine that script reading like a gangbuster when A20, like when the studios and all the trying to making it, reading it. But I personally didn't care. I felt like maybe it's just because I watch a lot of, I'm a big fan of Ari Aster. Watching it, I was like, if Ari Aster wanted to direct this, I felt like he could give this film the visual flair I feel like it's missing. And then surely enough, the credits appear and it says executive and produced Ari Aster. And I'm like, there it is. There's where my head was at.
I feel like if Ari Aster were to do it, it would be bloated, it would be self-indulgent, it would be frustrating. And I just feel like this one was like lean, simple, and not like, I don't know. I see that's where I would, and I haven't seen very many of his movies, so I shouldn't say that. But I don't know. I feel like it wasn't that like I think of the average. This is not one of those A24 films that like only cinephiles will like. Like I think that this is pretty approachable.
You are right. I do think it feels a little bit more like mainstream and a little bit more palatable, because let's be for real, there's a lot of A24 films that I would never stay. When someone's like, where should I start? I hear all this A24 movie or A something in that number movie. Where should I start? I'm like, well, let me tell you, there's a lot of places you don't want to start. Right. I do think Death of a Unicorn is a good place to will people into the type of movies that they are buying. Or seeking out. It's interesting. To go harder. I just wanted to go harder.
I wonder if part of it is because I find this happens quite a bit. I'll watch something that's like more horror themed, like with Wolfman this year. I really enjoyed it. I liked the fact that I was always unsure how far he'd gone. Like, should they help him? Should they not help him? Like, how much humanity was left? And that tension to me was fun. But like, it seemed like almost all my horror friends were like, oh, seen it all, been there, done that. We all, pretty much none of them liked it. And so sometimes I wonder if like my lack of familiarity with the tropes, maybe I'm not as harsh sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. And for me, it was like, I like the idea because it does to me, it plays like a slasher movie. Just the slasher is the unicorns.
Yeah.
So I was enjoying that element to it, but I felt like they eat the rich subplots, the characters, all that stuff to me. And maybe it's the A24 brand. I just felt like there wasn't as much meat on the bones as I think the film thought it had. But I do think this is going to be a film that I think audiences, if you see it with a crowd, you might enjoy it a little bit more. Yeah. And I'm glad I saw it with the South by Southwest crowd, because I think as people like us who have been to the festival many times, we know that the crowds at South by are not like crowds you get at Sundance or other festivals. They can be a very animated audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor of this episode of the podcast. It's the new novel Shooting Stars Above by Patricia Levy. In this heartfelt contemporary romance, Patricia Levy takes us on a journey with a best-selling novelist and a federal agent fighting to heal past wounds. Can unconditional love help heal through this epic love story? Order the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble now for only 99 cents using the affiliate link below. That's only 99 cents for a limited time. Don't miss it.
So did you get a chance to see The Ballad of Wallace Island?
Yes.
Okay. So this is one that I saw at Sundance. But yeah, what a sweet movie. This comes out in just a couple of weeks. In theaters. I really enjoyed it. I said that I felt like it was sort of a John Carney movie that's not made by John Carney. Because I love Sing Street so much. I love Once. It's just his movies I love. But this had that energy, I think, and it was funny. It was sweet. I think I got maybe a tiny bit too much of the quirky, eccentric guy. He got a little grating, but still overall very enjoyable.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought the music was fantastic. I was like, I am going to hate that I can't because I actually listen to a lot of that type of music on my personal time. So I was just like, I hate that I can't be jamming out to these songs, which I do love the fact that the lead actor did perform one of the songs from the movie after the showing, which was wonderful. I thought that was really beautiful moment. And I thought it was a really sweet, beautiful movie. And I really liked it. It was just one of those things where it's like, I want to keep watching movies and there's no horror films playing in this block. I like Carey Mulligan. Let me go see this. And I'm so glad that I did. It's not something I normally seek out, but I really did enjoy it. Perfect movie to watch it on a Sunday afternoon at 11 a.m. to start your day.
Yeah, really, it is. I'm frustrated because I feel like so often these movies get purchased at Sundance or at South by Southwest, and then the studios do nothing with them. Like, this movie should be a mainstream hit, I feel like.
Tell me about it.
But nobody knows about it.
Yeah, there's so many films that I do Sundance too, and there's what is it? A Little Prayer. I'm still waiting. I saw that at Sundance. I'm still waiting for that to come out. Yeah. And that has
and it's just like, why do these distributors spend the big money to purchase these films and then do nothing with them?
I know.
It's so confusing to me. I mean, every once in a while you'll have an Everywhere, Everything, All at Once or Substance or something like that, or Nickel Boys that kind of claws through. But I just don't get it. If you're spending millions of dollars to purchase these films, why don't you market them? Especially with social media marketing, which is practically free.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. I can understand why you don't want to do television spots or things like that, but these days marketing is so cheap these days. It just doesn't make any sense. But
yeah,
what do I know? I also saw at Sundance, I saw Deaf Presence Now.
Okay.
This is very good. This is a very good documentary. And this Davis Guggenheim, he really knows how to put together a satisfying talking heads type documentary. He did Waiting for Superman, was all about our failing education system. Did An Inconvenient Truth, which somehow made Al Gore standing in front of a PowerPoint interesting. And then he did Still last year, the Michael J. Fox
Yeah, I
documentary.
saw that one for sure.
He's just really good. He's able to make these stories or sort of talking head stories. He's able to keep the momentum in the narrative, and he did this, and I think it was particularly difficult because you're dealing with most of the characters are signing, not talk. Most of the people are signing, not talking. So making a documentary is a little bit challenging, but he does a good job. And it's all about this I think it was 1989, 1988. There's this deaf school in the DC area, and they were replacing their what's wrong with me? They were replacing the head of the school, and they're putting in somebody who not only wasn't deaf but couldn't even sign. So then there's all these protests, and it was very interesting and very well done. So I recommend that if you like documentaries. That was very good. And then the other documentary that I enjoyed is this one called We Are Store.
That also played at South by. I didn't make it to that
Yes.
one. I had that on my list.
I saw this at South by. So this one, this is by director Michael Bay.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's directed by Michael Bay because he loves those drone shots. The drone.
Yeah. I wanted to see this, but I was doing the press for We Bury the Dead, and that was playing right after it.
Oh, okay.
So I had to skip that, so therefore I could be ready for the red carpet and to do all that. So
the previous 2 years I did red carpet at South by Southwest. This year I didn't do it because the thing was just so crazy. But and I was also sick before South by South in early March, so I didn't have, like, I just missed, and but it's a fun experience. And the first time that I was working press at South by Southwest, I was covering this Disney Plus show called A Small Light, about the woman who helped hide Anne Frank in the Frank family. It's a very good series.
Wow.
Very good series, National Geographic on Disney Plus. And I was stoked. I was like, I'm excited that I got red carpet for a Disney Plus show. Like, that's pretty cool. And I was stoked. I go there, and everybody was like very low energy. The other people there, press, and I was like, "What's wrong? Like, this is so exciting! Like, this is super cool." And they're like, "Oh, it's," they're like, "Oh, it's Nat Geo." And I'm like, "What? When did National Geographic become a slur? It's Nat Geo." It was so funny. I was like, so they weren't excited, but I was. So
yeah,
Geo.
Like, oh yeah, I wish I could have seen the Michael Bay one, because I had gotten word before the festival that, like, hey, this has potential to, like, win the best doc, just for, like, the energy that the documentary brings.
Yeah.
But I couldn't make it work. And I don't tend to focus on documentaries, but I like to squeeze in at least one at the festival. Like, I remember seeing Black Box Diaries at last year's South by. But I couldn't make it work.
This one was about this parkour guys. I guess they're on YouTube and stuff. I'd never heard of any of this. I didn't know what parkour was. I didn't know what store was. They're getting older. They're not able to do the same tricks that they were able to do. And, but it's a nice friendship story, and you get to see some pretty cool stunts along the way. So yeah, I think the drone shots worked for this because they're flying through the air. I mean, it makes sense. So
yeah, Michael Bay and his drones. I saw Ambulance in IMAX. I'll never forget it.
So what's something else that you saw at South by South you want to talk about?
Hands down, the movie that, like, I am going to be insufferable for the entire year talking about is Neons Together. I saw Neons Together. It was the only real midnighter of South by this year, where like
Uh-huh.
a midnight movie actually started at midnight instead of like 10 p.m. Uh, this is the Allison Brie and Dave Franco body horror film that will inevitably be compared to The Substance, which I don't think is warranted. I think it's actually the opposite of The Substance. Well, The Substance is talking about beauty standards and, the female experience. This is about relationship and codependency and our bodies and during in relationships. Now, yes, some of the body horror gets a little substance in the terms of the visual flair, but I think that's the only thing that they have in common. This movie rocked my world. I watch so many horror movies, and I mean, like, I'm like so desensitized. But watching this in the Paramount I was in row like 3 in the Paramount, so I was close to that screen. I could practically lick it, and I fought for my life. This movie scared me. It took me back to like watching Barbarian and just not knowing where it was taking me. And I thought Dave Franco and Allison Brie were phenomenal. And the fact that we have a real life couple who've been together for over 10 years doing a movie that's kind of exploring the codependencies of relationships when you get into a relationship and you sort of fall into rhythm, and that can kind of, make the spark kind of die in a way. I feel like together, I don't mean to sound so hyperbolic because I know that we critics can sometimes get that way. But every time I've drank water, I've thought about Together. So in a way, Together has done what,
Whoa.
Jaws did for sharks, the way drinking water has. Because every time I drink water now, I am thinking of this movie,
Wow,
and
that's heavy.
it's heavy. It's so heavy. And there's it rocked my world. I think the teaser that Neon put out is perfect. It shows just enough, but doesn't spoil the directions that this goes in. Because I'm telling you, it has that Sam Raimi effect where it's not afraid to be funny and it'll throw a joke at you and then throw the horror at you right after, so it throws you off your guard and then hits you with the scare. So now the scare is like twice as effective because you weren't expecting it. And I'm telling you, I screamed, I jumped, I levitated, I fought for my life. I honestly was like slasher reviews question mark. Like I thought I was a pro at this. And I was embarrassing myself. And all my friends were like, I thought you were the expert, And yeah, I loved it. It was my favorite film. I knew immediately after the movie was over that I had seen not only like my favorite film of the festival, but also arguably probably going to be one of my favorite films of the year. And I don't think I'm gonna have a theater experience as good as that.
Oh
Like
man, I'm definitely
it,
gonna.
yeah, I it has to be seen in a crowd. It has to be seen with a crowd. This was the crowd was electric. It was one of those movies where like when the Dave Franco and Allison Brie stepped back on the stage, they were just like in awe of just the reactions that they were hearing. Like there were times it's just there's an all-timer jump scare in this movie that I thought about it. I've thought about it. Unfortunately, I can't stop thinking about it.
Do you think that me being the horror wimp who's just kind of just starting into the genre, you know what I've seen, I saw
Yeah.
Substance. Do you think I'll like it?
I do. I think you'll like the creativity of it all. Like, I just think, like, you talk about Death of Unicorn, about just like you like the idea that you just didn't know where it was taking you. I think that aspect of Together is Dave Franco and Allison Brie are just so good in it. It's directed so beautifully. The ending is phenomenal. I think it's body horror. Like people will compare it to The Substance, but it does what The Substance does, but it makes sure there's enough separation between the two that like they're not going to be in each other's shadows, that they can be in a lot of ways together as well.
Cool. Well, a couple other movies that I saw, I wasn't part of the festival, but I saw Night of the Zoopocalypse while I was there because I wanted to see it. I love animation. I love animated films. And this is a really fun movie. I think it would be a great way to introduce your kids to like the horror movie tropes without
Oh,
it
yeah.
being like traumatic. Like it's still, G-rated like kids film, but it definitely has like some scary scenes and I think it's similar to something like Monster House,
Ooh.
in the way that Monster House kind of does that and tells the stories. The animation I thought was pretty good for, no budget, small, company. The colors, the purples and the greens and everything were nice. The characters could be a little grating at times, and especially when they're trying to make it for kids, so that like the humor and some of the side characters can be a little annoying. But I still overall enjoyed it, and I think it could be a nice thing for families, because if I had kids, I would want to introduce my kids to as many different kinds of movies as I could, and then they could decide, oh, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. And so I think that something like Zoopocalypse or Monster House or Toy Story of Terror,
Mm.
Frankenweenie, Coraline, these movies, I think they do a good job of kind of, it's like a safe but fun for, so those kids that love scary movies, they can find out, oh, this is what I like.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's good.
Oh,
So
I love that.
yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
I also saw it's Sundance. I saw the Marlee Matlin doc, which was a very nice compliment to the Deaf Press now, because both of those, like she won her Oscar in 88 and everything's happening at 88. So they kind of fit both deaf experiences at the same time. So that was interesting. Nice. I saw The Spies Among Us, which is about this guy who finds out, this German man who finds out that his brother, after his brother's passed away, that his brother was actually a spy for the East Germans. And it was pretty good. And I saw the makings of Curtis Mayfield. This is directed by the singer Her.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yes.
And she was there. She introduced it and everything. I wanted to like it more than I did. Because he's like amazing. Curtis Mayfield, like his life was pretty wild. And like he had this crazy accident that ended up leaving him paralyzed. And he still got nominated for a Grammy for an album that he did completely flat. He did the whole album bedridden, basically. I mean, wow. So he's like a super cool, interesting guy. But the problem is that like maybe 2/3 of the movie was her sitting in a recording studio with one of her friends, like John Legend or Common or someone like that, and listening to the songs and being like, look how great a song this is. And it's like, yeah, we all know it's a great song. Like, you could have a couple of those, but I actually felt like I came out of it not really learning that much about Curtis Mayfield. I learned a lot about what her and her friends think of these songs, but yeah, so that you could tell it was her first time directing. She could improve. Then the other one that I saw is called Cotton Candy Bubblegum. And this is one of those experiences where it can be a little awkward at a festival, because everybody was there. This was a premiere. Everyone was there. And this thing did not get I swear, a single laugh out of the crowd. And
Oh no,
you
we've
just
all
start
been there.
you just start to feel awkward. You feel uncomfortable for everybody involved because nobody's laughing. And it's only 88 minutes and it felt like way longer than
Oh, that sucks because
I
I
know.
was in line to see something and I remember those filmmakers. They seem like nice dudes
Oh,
too. So they're coming out giving out free gum, trying to say, hey, come see our movie. And they seem like really nice dudes. So
I
it does
know.
suck when you go to see the film and it's just not you're not vibing with it, and it seems
Yeah.
and it sucks even more when it's universally, happening all collectively in the theater together.
Yeah. I know. Like they gave out gum to everybody and you just want to be laughing and it just wasn't funny.
Yeah.
It was painful. And so
Yeah. I'm pretty good at when it comes to festivals because I've been doing festivals since 2016 to know like what I think is going to work for me and what I don't think is going to work for me. I'm pretty good at reading the program because
yeah.
I've burned myself so hard in the past. um, and I just had a feeling, my gut was like, man, these guys are nice, but I just don't think this is my type of film.
Yeah.
So I didn't see it. Even when even if I had that free block open.
Yeah, you take chances, you never know. You can be surprised.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was not good. Um so you saw The Clown in the Cornfield.
I did. It was probably my
What a
most
name.
anticipated.
What a title.
Not only
what
I
did
am a
you,
massive fan of not of the book because I do read. So I've read the series,
okay.
and I'm a big fan of Adam Caesar. I follow him on TikTok. We're mutuals, and I think he's just a sweet guy. So this was my most anticipated of the festival because one, I wanted to support Adam. Two, I love slasher movies. Three, I love the book. There was so much going on to it. It was Shutter, and Shutter's my girl. I love Shutter. They keep my lights on in this place. It feels like,
Yeah.
and it delivered everything and more. I loved Clown in a Cornfield, and I think a lot of people are going to be in for a real treat with this one. Uh, it plays a lot of tropes to slasher films until it's not playing with those tropes anymore in a really fun way.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually had it because the first day I just was like express pass for anything I could get, and somehow I signed up for Clown in a Cornfield, and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think I can handle it. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm assuming you probably haven't seen that director's previous film, Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
No.
So this movie, I feel like tonally is a little bit more in line with that. It's
Okay.
very slapstick. So while it is
Oh.
gory and violent, it's also done with a slice of tongue-in-cheek comedy. So I actually think that if you're someone who doesn't watch particularly a whole lot of horror, and you're like, I think Clown and Cornfield is a great type of film to watch. You don't have to be, it's not like Scream where I feel like it rewards, like every time you watch Scream, you're almost rewarded because you've watched so many horror films prior to Scream. Clown and Cornfield, I feel like it finds that perfect marriage of being violent and gory to satisfy slasher fans who've seen this 1,000 times, but also being a gateway that if folks who just want to watch something that's fun and entertaining can.
Yeah.
The characters
Yeah.
rule.
I have seen some horror comedies like Evil Dead, Drag Me to Hell. I mean, I guess I'm thinking of all Sam Raimi, but he's the first
Have you
person I
seen
think
Cabin in
of.
the Woods?
No, I have not seen that, but I've heard
I was
that's
going to
good.
say tonally, it might be a little bit more on par with that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was a blast. It was so much fun to see with a crowd, and I was with all my friends too. So that was one of the highlights of the festival, and I'm just so happy the movie is good. I need everyone to see it because I need them damn sequels. I need them sequels. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it probably won't need to make that much. I mean, those kind of horror movies just are really cheap.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like movies like Clown and Cornfield end up having really long legs when
Yes.
they come out on streaming and DVD and stuff. They tend
Yeah.
to really take off. So yeah, but I do think it's a film that's worthy seeing in the theater. I think it is a ton
Yeah.
of fun, and there's a lot of excellent set pieces.
Well, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Well, so do you have any others that you want to talk about that you saw? That
Yes.
really-
I would have to say, Good Boy wrecked my life. Good Boy is a horror film that took 400 days to film because it is told entirely through the perspective of a dog.
Oh my gosh. Is it
So, you
really
know, if you've
shaky?
seen, yeah, so if you've seen horror films and you know what the tropes with the dog or how the dog's always barking in the corner, seeing things that are not really there, this movie is that, but it's told through the perspective of a dog, and it understands that we love our pets. So I think it actually is a very beautiful film about our bond with our pets, but it's also a horror film. So in a lot of ways, it did remind me of Soderbergh's Presence earlier this year meets Skinamarink, and the fact that it's doing something experimental, and it's talking about something without directly saying it to the camera. And watching this movie unravel, I was crying just as much as I was on edge. I think in a lot of ways, I think this movie is going to speak to so many people. I think that this movie is going to, and the fact of the matter is that's a real dog. They shot those are his real reactions. It looks stunning. It is one of the best looking movies I saw at the entire festival. I cannot believe the commitment to make that movie. And you never see the adults' faces, but the adults have lines and all that stuff.
Oh.
So that's where it kind of.
So is it shaky cam?
What?
Is it shaky cam?
No. It's a full film. Cinematography, like, is gorgeous, all that stuff, and like just the camera's just always on the dog, you know. Like you see the dog's face, you know, and I think it plays around with some tropes in an interesting way. It really, truly spoke to me.
That's cool.
I think it's gonna mean a lot to a lot of people, both people who have had pets and both people who have unfortunately just had to deal with uncertainty with living. So it's equally scary and sad. Yeah.
That sounds intense. All right. Anything else that you want to talk about before we head out?
Yeah. Two films. The Rivals of Amazon King, the Matthew McConaughey film.
I heard that was good.
It honestly is the only film I saw. It's like last year with Sing Sing, where it was the only film I saw that I'm like, we might be talking about this come November, December when awards season kicks in. I love Andrew Patterson. I saw his first film, The Vast of Night, and when I watched that, I was like, this is going to be one of the greats. This is a man. You talk about a director who not only is amazing.
I loved that Vast of Night. Yeah, that was really good.
You watch The Vast of Night, you're like, not only is the script amazing, the performance is amazing, the cinematography amazing, but the direction and everything is just as equally amazing. And that's the same thing. So and Matthew McConaughey, I think it's time for his second Oscar. He's so good in this movie. It's Beekeepers. It's a crime drama, but it's also a musical without being a musical.
A musical?
Yeah, there's a lot of singing. There's like 6 songs in the film, but it's more like kicking it. As someone who grew up in the Deep South, this type of presentation of Southern charm and Southern hospitality and just what it's like to live out is very realistic. And I really liked it. And my last film I want to talk about is a film. It's probably this is a kid who's going to go places. It's a film called It Ends. And ironically, it was the last film I saw of South by Southwest. So very fitting way to end the fest, about a group of kids who get stuck on an endless road and it never stops. And it kind of plays, it's a genre, it's both a horror film, it's a coming of age film, it's a meditative drama about what happens when you're like, and I assume you probably experienced this on your 2-day drive.
That's true.
You get stuck in your head with your thoughts. And sometimes your thoughts can be cruel, and this movie is kind of exploring that in a genre that's not afraid to tally around different things, as these four friends are stuck on this endless road, and they realize the road's not stopping. They just have to keep driving. There's a revelation that happens. There's a couple of revelations that happen, but the first one scared the hell out of me. And then it made me cry. It made me feel things. I was like, and the fact of the matter, this kid graduated in 2020 and he's already making something that's this intellectual and deep and thought-provoking and provocative and scary, and just makes you feel all the array of emotions that I feel a movie is capable of making you feel. Like, I felt everything. And I cannot wait to see what this guy does next. He's the sweetest guy. I think that it's a small indie film, and my God, I need everyone to see it. So I wanted to mention that just because
I'm glad
it's one of the, it's the little toaster. It's the little, the little film you want to see just get a lot of attention that hopefully I don't see get buried.
Yeah, that's not, I knew nothing about, I missed that one, but yeah, it would be perfect given my road trip.
I actually think
I'll
you're gonna
contact them. Yeah.
You need to contact them. I actually think you're going to really relate to it now that you just did the 2 days of the road. But yeah, it's a beautiful, scary, it's an incredible movie. And it was one of those movies, like, when it was over, it was one of the movies that where, as the film goes along, it actually gets progressively more boring. And I mean that as a compliment. Because life itself, as you fall into its rhythm and its place, things get more mundane, regardless of whether it's a good circumstance or bad circumstance that has been placed upon you. And I think that this director is doing so much. And the fact that he's like, yeah, I graduated, wanted to make a movie. Here we go. Sir, the talent. I just can't with this kid.
Yeah. So the only other one that I saw on screening, I saw My Uncle Jen's.
Oh, yeah.
This was a Norwegian film about this young man whose uncle comes to stay with him, and then he just keeps staying and staying and staying, and you realize he's actually hiding out from something, and it gets sort of more complicated, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I still have a screener for that one.
Yeah.
So I'm looking.
I thought the lead guy was very charming. I enjoyed him, and so I could see this being Norwegian's submission next year.
Oh, cool.
That wouldn't surprise me if it was Norwegian's submission.
Nice.
I mean, who knows? But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. So there we go. That is South by Southwest. Let us know if you got to go to the festival, what you saw. And which ones sound the most interesting to you of which ones we talked about. I mean, my favorite was definitely Nirvana. That was my favorite. It was everything you want.
I cannot fault you with that.
Yeah.
That was honestly, like I said, I talked a lot about the horror films that played at the fest, but that outside of Together, that was probably my number 2, just for the fear creativity of it all. And
just the heightened experience outside just the heightened experience that you get at the festival of them talking about going up to doing that jump, and
that CT tower,
what?
How
did they do that? And
I'm sure in your Q&A they asked, can we talk about the CT tower? All they did was just bust out laughing.
Yeah.
And honestly, we all started laughing along with it. And it's like, yep, question answered.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, let us know what you think. If you got to see any of the films, if you get to see any of the films, like some of these are coming out real soon, like Ballad of Wallace Island, things like that. So definitely keep Death of Unicorns coming out. So make sure you check back in when you see them and let us know what you think. And this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
We'll definitely have you back.
I hope to see you at some other festivals.
Yes. I last year I didn't get into New York Film Festival, which was so disappointing. But because I'd gotten in the previous years. I might apply to TIFF. I don't know. We should have to see.
Well, if you don't get into TIFF, look at Fantastic Fest. They get a lot of TIFF rollovers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know Sean goes to that. So
I go to it too. I've been going to it since 2016.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Well, if people want to follow you, everything you do, what's the best ways to follow you?
Best way to follow me, I will be honest, is Slasher Reviews. I'm very active on Instagram, Letterboxd. Like my Letterboxd stats are statin. I keep that up to date. Okay. Yes. When the end of the year's Letterboxd wrap comes out, it is almost 98% correct. So if you want to know my thoughts, I always letterbox every movie. Even if I don't have time to make a TikTok about it, I will letterbox it. So Letterboxd /reviews, Instagram /reviews, Twitter /reviews. Literally, I make it so easy. You want to find me /reviews.
Yeah. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure you're following me at the Hallmarkies Podcast. Got lots of fun stuff going on over there. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really, really helps us a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And I have my out of theater reaction to all the ones that I saw live, and including Night of the Zoopocalypse, Death of the Unicorn. I have my out of theater reaction. All that is there in shorts. So check that out. And make sure you check out the Patreon group and the merch store. I got lots of fun stuff going on over there. And thanks again. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.